First, we're going to talk about the first legend that we're going to talk about is the cannibal girl of the metro. Now, to let y'all know, I have never been to a state that had a metro system like New York or in places like Japan or China where they use the subway system. I've never been there. I've never been anywhere like that uses that kind of system. There's a couple of states in this United States that does that, but I've never done it, right? I'm not a big fan of public transportation. I have an issue with people driving me around. I get anxiety, a panic attack kind of situation. Oh, no, I don't like it. I don't like getting in the cars, other people. I drive. So let's move on. So from what I've seen, it is that it can get hectic and overwhelming, especially for minors. So yeah, can you imagine, being a kid in a busy subway trying to stay close to your mom or dad or whatever, and it's just jam-packed, busy, bustling, people all over the place. It could be a stressful situation. But our story takes this to a whole nother level. The child that this happened to, the child in question, is a little girl named Rosarito Sanchez Sierra, age 8. So a little 8-year-old got lost in the metros of Mexico. On September 7th, 1972, the little girl was taking the metro with her mother to work like they had done 1,000 times before. On Metro Line 1 at the Tacubaya station, while rushing to get on the metro, witnesses that saw what happened said that the little girl had gotten separated from her mother in the crowded station. That's when her mother's panic began to set in. So the little girl gets separated. The mom starts looking around, trying to find her, right? Authorities that ran an investigation to reconstruct what had happened using information given by the mother and witnesses that had seen what had happened, or what they believe is what happened, is that once she got separated, she just got swept away. Like the crowd moving all as one just took her, and that's what happened. The police searched for weeks without finding anything that says that she was there. They couldn't find any signs of life, that there was someone, an active child or someone living there. But what they had found, or what they found is one thing, or a couple of things. They did find human remains. It could have been one of two things. Either people who were disturbed and decided that that was the only way to deal with their lives, in other words, taking their own lives on a train, or a dumping ground for criminals to dispose of their enemies. Now, this is the 70s, and during the 70s, talking about suicides was not a common occurrence. It was taboo. It's barely been a thing in our generation. So imagine back then. So the police did not take that they didn't take it as a serious thing. They didn't think that was the case. They thought it was just a dumping ground for criminals. Some of them might have been suicides. Others, the cops didn't believe this, right? So the search goes on. The police believe that the bodies and the child missing had no connections, so they continue to search. So they see the bodies. They're like, this has nothing to do with what we're doing down here. Let's move on. They keep going, right? Pretty sure they investigated the bodies, but that wasn't what these detectives were there for. So they continue searching. Then finally, the good news that they had been hoping for, on November 22nd, they had found the girl in the tunnels between the Tacubaya and Juanacatlan stations. She was alive, well, and alert, with only the exception is that she just looked homeless. Which is probably why it took so long for anyone to find her. Because they were looking for a little girl that's, scared, emaciated, because hasn't eaten 8 days? 17th through the 22nd? Yeah, something like that. Where's the date? The 7th through the 22nd. That's a lot more than 8 days. But yeah, so they were looking for someone like that, but they weren't looking for a child that looked completely homeless. The police held a press conference to inform the public that she was safe and receiving medical attention. After the conference, everyone had noticed that the girl was unusually calm, like she knew that she was going to be found safe. Being lost for 15 days, she was surprisingly calm. But the next part is where it gets kind of crazy. And this is where it turns into an urban legend. So, this is a missing child, it's an actual case. And now this is where it turns into an urban legend because, like I said, all urban legends usually have some truth behind them. And this is where that turns into an urban legend. The 8-year-old girl proceeded to tell her part of what happened. When she got lost, she had said that while in the metro, she was distracted by the large crowds and got swept away with the crowd. Losing sight of her mother, she did whatever she could to try and find her, but was unable to. Eventually, she got scared and proceeded to go into the tunnels. She had said, "I was very afraid. I didn't know what to do. I had never been separated from my mother. I saw that there were some tunnels, so I went in. I stayed there in a corner, and even though it was dark, I didn't want to leave. But I started to feel very hungry. I had already spent hours without anything in my stomach. Hunger made me move. I walked and walked through the tunnels until I started hearing strange noises, as if they were animals. I approached the sound and saw something terrifying. It was the body of a dead man, and with him many rats, eating his flesh. It made me sick and scared, but I was so hungry it felt like my guts were eating each other. So I went over and did the same. Just like the rats, I chewed the meat little by little. It was hard and tasted like iron, but I kept up with the rats. I ate and ate. I realized that his left ankle was in very bad condition, as if it had been fractured by a fall. So I chewed there because it looked easier to bite. So much so that it came off, and I was able to eat the foot by myself, away from the rats. So remember, the remains that were found were remains, but apparently before they were remains, it was a body, and her and the rats took it apart. Now, this, like I said, this is where it turns into an urban legend. There is no confirmation whether it is true or not. Hey, what's going on? Kill the lamb. Got to mark wherever I interact so I can cut that out later. So, after hearing this, the police immediately looked for anyone that might be able to confirm this. They had supposedly found 3 people that could confirm this. They had seen a girl at the end of one of the platforms kneeling down and making strange noises, almost like an animal chewing a bone. After hearing this, the police had decided not to add it to their report. They had understood why she had done this because she needed to eat, and being so young, did not know any better. I mean, where else is she going to get food in the dark tunnels, right? It's either that or she would have eaten the rats. What authorities did do was to refer her to the Mexican Institute of Emotional and Psychological Trauma. So they sent her to an institute to get some help, psychiatry, things like that, because that has to be very disturbing to be so hungry that you eat someone's foot. That's that's how she survived though. She was lost for 18 days. How else was she going to survive? And there have been updates to a report, right? Because like I said, this is a real story, but the urban legend part is that little part right there that she ate somebody. Or could she have gone to the institute and psychiatric evaluations and the psychologist and everyone convinced her that it was just her mind constructing a way to stay sane? Because she had to eat somebody. She had to eat something. So maybe in her mind, they try to convince her that it was a body, it was meat that she had found, so a body, instead of her actually having to hunt and kill a rat. Her mind might have twisted it and said that it was already dead. It was a person that had died. That might be what they use to try to suppress it. That way, whatever, right? Like I said, the only people that know what really happened is going to be her. Nobody else.